Recyard, Women's Prison Podcast, where we are live on the Recyard every Wednesday night. Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Recyard, Women's Prison Podcast. I'm Marci Marie.
I'm Toonche.
I feel like I need to have a disclaimer saying this episode is pre-recorded because I don't want false advertising because our intro said live.
Well, I think you do the right thing by just letting people know that, once again, I did not plan well, and I will be in New York, so I won't be able to be live with you tomorrow. So we had to pre-record.
So we're pre-recording, but I am in the chat with you right now. Say hello in the chat to me, and I'm going to be responding to your questions in the chat, and we're going to have a great time without you, Toonche.
I mean, usually women do. So
Tonight we are talking about how does produced prison, how do prison television shows, movies, and this kind of stuff measure up to the real deal?
yeah, I've got some pretty interesting clips that I put together that we can analyze and talk through to see, were they on the money or were they totally off?
I am excited that you did so much preparation for today's show. I'm impressed.
I did.
And we appreciate you.
Yeah, I did it all day today. So,
well, before we do that, let's do a weekly recap. Toonche, I had a heck of a weekend.
You did. We both did.
Yes.
But let's get mine out of the way, because I feel like you've got so much to share with everybody about San Antonio. But I spent the weekend doing some storytelling trainings with Texas After Violence Project and finished the 5. Had a good time eating some barbecue and then hanging out at the Unitarian Universalist Church with you and Donice. But please, I want you to share with everyone what your weekend looked like.
Yeah, I was busy, and I had my nephews the whole weekend. I had a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old traveling with me, and so we drove down Thursday night because All of Us or None of Us and Big Homies Ministries, which is a prison ministries out of San Antonio, Texas, put on an incredible training. There were organizations from all over Texas, and I met a lot of new people. It was really incredible. And then I had the kids at the training with me, and I just want to say, my nephews are off the chain. Normally, they are rowdy and rambunctious and loud, but when I tell you they let me do that training, it was miraculous. It was miraculous. My little 6-year-old nephew was sitting there, and the speaker would say, "Raise your hand if," and he'd look up at me and say, "Do I have to do that, Aunt Marcy?" And I'm like, "No, you don't have to, kiddo. Just continue with coloring and doing what you're doing." But yeah, so we did the training and swam in the pool. They had a rooftop pool, and some of my friends that I was incarcerated with, Destiny and Denise, were there at that training. It was really great. Then the next day, we had a formerly incarcerated person's march. Lots of people, hundreds of people, big energy. Again, Brown Berets were there. I mean, I can't say all of the organizations that were there. There were a lot of different organizations represented, and the energy and community that was there that day was really spectacular. It was really fun. So I did go live on our Lioness Facebook page. So you guys, if you want to see that, if you want a little glimpse of that, look there. And then there's some pictures on our Facebook as well. It was a really good, and we had more Lioness. We had about 9 Lioness members. San Antonio Lioness is growing, and it's really exciting. They've already been communicating with some of the other organizations there in San Antonio that we met that weekend. I've already gotten lots of messages about those collaborations and what the future might hold in San Antonio working together. That's super exciting. And then Sunday, I saw you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sunday morning oh, well, Saturday after the march, I saw you. We stopped at our friend's house, and lots of advocates there, and had good community and chicken off the grill and some killer macaroni and cheese. Uh,
Yeah.
anyways, so we did that, and then again, the kiddos were there running around like crazy, and Sunday morning, we went to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church, where I was interviewed by Reverend Joe about Texas prisons. And
Yeah.
that congregation was very welcoming. They asked brilliant questions afterwards. They are wanting to get mobilized in doing some work to change the system. So I was very encouraged by that. And I just adore Reverend Joe anyway. She's Reverend Joe, REVJOUU on TikTok. And she has a good little TikTok account and she answers all questions regarding her faith, regarding her church, regarding her congregation, what they believe in. It was just very welcoming and I loved it. It was good. And then home again, home again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's stuff that we both have coming up this week. So, yeah, it was a really impactful weekend. I just enjoyed community with everyone. It was just y'all had such a great time and experience. Just truly overall just a joyful weekend.
It
So,
was. There was I walked I had a lack of planning for the march. There was you march a mile and a half and then hello, you have to get back to where you started from. And it's hot and I have these 2 small children with me. And I thought, "Oh gosh, people are giving rides back to their car, but my car seat is here. This is not going to work for me. I'm going to walk back." So I had this brilliant idea that I was still tough and strong and young. And I walked back and I was pretty overheated. I really pushed myself doing that. Um, but I was thinking, like, as I was getting really hot and even, like, pouring water down my shirt, and, of course, the baby's in the shade, and the baby's got a little handheld fan, and the baby's shirt is wet, baby's laughing and having a great time, and I'm pushing this forward. Anyways, I was thinking, like, this feels like host squad. This is field squad. This is when I have this it gave me this clear flashback of Lieutenant Warren yelling at some poor girl that was out of shape, and were not used to marching and not used to this physical labor and couldn't walk anymore. And it would be me and my friend Anna Hasso, shout out Hasso, H-Town, Lioness member. She and I would have to carry whomever. And it wasn't always me and Anna, but it was often me and Anna, and it was often me. Um, but we would have to carry her, like, each on one side, and he'd be yelling, like, "You better pick that hoe up. Get that hoe off the ground. If that hoe falls back, all 3 of y'all are getting hooked up." That
mhm.
military case. I mean, it was that going on in my head, and it my heart started racing. I felt that same feeling of, anger mixed with determination that I felt in there.
Mhm.
I also was like, "You know what? My girls inside, my ladies inside" I'm gonna stop saying girls. My powerful women friends inside, they they are still dealing with that, and so I can walk this little at that point, I had like a half a mile left. I can walk this little bit back, but I was thinking, "Yeah, I'm fighting for this to stop." I hadn't thought about that, Toonch. I hadn't thought about that scenario, how he would if she was even slightly overweight, he would be, "Dangle a cheeseburger in front of that hoe, and I bet she can walk." I mean, just berating, 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 and I hadn't it so many things happen from inside those prison walls and from in there that I don't remember it all at once. It comes back to me in flashes, and I don't even realize how wrong some of it is
Yeah.
until something like this happens, and then I'm clearly remembering him just on and on about, "Ate too many Snickers bars. You went to store this weekend? That's why you can't walk." I mean, just, uh, shaming everybody, and then the culture to encourage us to shame each other and,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
uh, "BITCH, get up and walk because 'cause we're getting yelled at because of you." Like, "You can't walk?" Well, no, she can't walk. She's been laid up in the county jail for 8 or 9 months, not moving.
Yeah.
They don't move in county jail, and now
Well, and remember, the county jails have temperature control, so she's
Yes.
also been not exposed to this level of extreme heat. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We still something can happen, and I've talked a lot with Diane about this. Is that, man, I'll just be angry and frustrated, and I don't know why. And then if I can just trace back my feelings and thoughts, it's some weird little thing that has somewhere in my subconscious remembers this has reminded me of prison, and then it'll bring it to my forefront. Sometimes it doesn't, but it just takes something a certain way, and it's like, man, I'd forgotten all about that, and now I clearly remember it, and now I clearly remember the feeling of it.
Tunchi, by a couple years in, I accepted that as normal behavior, and not only normal, but acceptable. Like, I
Sure.
I accepted that. That was I mean, that particular thing, there were things that I was like, "Oh, hell no, this is wrong. I can't I'm changing my tampon in the middle of the field. That's wrong." But there were but though that, I was like, just felt like it was I mean, it just yeah, yeah. So anyways, enough of that, but I did have that little reality, and I need to remind myself to do a video about that so the rest of the world, although, the main peeps are right here on the rec yard with us.
They really
So
are.
yeah, truly. Truly. So let's get to it. Let's get to it. That was one of the main things, I got compared to Piper Kerman a lot. And I get even my first year on social media, I got that a lot. I don't really now, maybe because I've gained weight. I don't know why, but I think just blonde doesn't look like you were supposed to be in prison, whatever that looks like to people. So I would get. So you're like, this is like the real life Orange is the New Black, and I would get that a lot. And so that was one of my big questions. In fact, on TikTok, my first year of TikTok, I did a series comparing oranges. Why didn't you didn't pull any of those videos of mine, did you?
I didn't.
Interesting.
I
That's okay. That's okay.
I
But I did a whole series about it. I did a whole I would it was really cute. In fact, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it. You do something. Let me do this.
well, what do you think is the most famous prison movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, for sure, right? Like, what? Don't get me started about. Do you remember there was a time that TNT and TBS showed Shawshank Redemption 3 or 4
Over
times?
and a weekend.
I mean, weekend over and
And
over.
it would be that one girl that would be like, "I've never seen this. How have you not seen it? You can see it from your bed in the dorm. It's been playing nonstop for a month. How?"
How did you not see that? So I actually, my first incarceration, I had a plethora of nicknames, but one of the host squad bosses, and he frightened me, Marcy, straight up. There was something about that man that deeply frightened me, and I avoided him as much as I could. Now, I worked in education as the librarian, right? So he used to call me Andy Dufresne because he would see me in the morning emptying out the book drop, and he'd say, "Come here. I know you're up to something, Andy Dufresne. You've got something in one of those books." And it was actually a weird, harassing, almost flirtatious, harassing something. I don't know how to describe it. So I'd just be like, oh, hi, yeah, yeah, like just trying to get away from me as much as I could. But um, several of the officers used to call me Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption. Because if you remember, everyone, Andy ran the library, and he was, kind of the one that, people would go to for information and looking up stuff and that kind of stuff. So I,
I feel like that's an accurate description or portrayal or that. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
very much in my little short hair and my little glasses,
And you
but
weren't
I,
getting in trouble. I was thinking about the fact that you weren't getting in trouble, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes, ma'am.
right. Yeah,
And that's
right.
the
So
same thing.
Andy,
Andy was not getting in trouble.
no, but he was utilizing his skill, right? Like Red was able to utilize, like he could hustle and get stuff. Andy utilized his um his expertise as a banker and his education to be able to manipulate the guards and the staff while providing services and help to the people he was incarcerated with. So, but that's not how Andy started out. Remember, he had a terrible time when he first got there, and I did too. Maybe not to that level, but I did, trying to adjust on that host squad while them girls picked on me and berated me and bullied me right along with the guard. Thanks, Marcy. That was me that you bullied on the field squad.
It wasn't you personally, but it was people.
Yeah,
And
poor
let me
little.
just put this out there.
Okay.
I know if I met you in prison and I was ugly to you, if I if I made you feel like you were somehow less important because I was part of this stupid mean girl mentality, and it's that's not my heart, and I love you, and I'm sorry. And I think that it's different people who had met me at different times would think that they had met a completely different person while I was in there, because I know that there are people that they're like, "You," they message me, "You helped me so much my whole time." But then there's that girl probably that was on Ho Squad that the law was telling me, "Cross that hoe out, Simmons," you know, "Cross
I
that
mean, but
hoe
that
out.
was
She's bringing
real.
everybody down. Cross her out."
Right.
And I was just playing right into it. For what? For the laws that didn't care jack squat about me? For the laws that would throw me under the bus to save themselves quicker than, I mean, so yeah, that happened. And I feel like there was all these little versions, and I know part of it was survival, but still that's no excuse for bullying, and that was part of that. That was
Well,
part of that culture in there.
I'm gonna say there. When you say there's no excuse for it, it was what it was. It was 100% pure survival. Period, Marcy. Period. And if you feel guilty about it now, if you feel regretful that you had to do those things, a lot of us had to do things to survive in prison that we don't ever want to talk about, right? It's not who we really are. And I know plenty of people that on the inside, whew, my goodness, treacherous, vicious, mean, and then they come out here and they feel safer to some degree. So they allow themselves to be who they really are. And it's just 100. I don't hold it against you. It's just what was it. It was what it was.
And I spent time this weekend with some ladies that I did my whole 10 with. They did 25, 27, 33 years. They knew me my whole 10. Uh, and that's one thing. They have seen me at my absolute worst, and they know what that looks like, and I know what their worst looks like. And we've seen each other at our best, and I think, I don't know what kind of point I'm trying to get at, but there's a sisterhood or a bonding that comes with that you can't tell me anything about those girls, because I know, like, you can't throw something, some kind of side weird thing out there, because I'm like, no, I've known her for 10 years and I've seen her do a lot of stuff,
Right. But I ain't never
but
seen
she
her do
ain't
that.
that. She ain't
Right.
that. And I just think that that's I So they've seen me, and they participated in some of that. I think that we all kind of went through that time where we were the person getting bullied, like high school, like freshmen getting bullied, and then they turn into seniors that bully. It's that same kind of culture, that weird um anyway. I do have a great video. I'm fixing to upload
Okay.
it. It's me right here on TikTok
Okay.
from 2 years ago, and I look really cute.
Well, I'm going to show us our clip from Shawshank Redemption, and we can talk about it and see what did they get right, what did they get wrong here.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, now y'all bear with me because Grandpa is
Happy.
at the
Always
realm
happy.
here. Okay, here we go. Can you see it?
Well, yes. I
Okay,
mean,
great. Okay, can you hear it?
Things went on like that for a while. Prison life consists of routine, and then more routine. Every so often, Andy would show up with fresh bruises. The sisters kept at him. Sometimes he was able to fight him off, sometimes not. That's how it went for Andy. That was his routine. I do believe those first 2 years were the worst for him. And I also believe if things had gone on that way, this place would have got the best of him. But then in the spring of 1949, the powers that be decided that
The roof of the license plate factory needs resurfacing. I need a dozen volunteers for a week's work. As you know, special detail carries with it special privileges.
it was outdoor detail. And May is one damn fine month to be working outdoors.
Stay in line there.
More than 100 men volunteered for the job.
Wallace E. Unger. Ellis Redding.
Wouldn't you know it? Me and some fellows I know were among the names called.
Andrew Dufresne.
okay.
So
Well,
I
right
lo-
off the jump. No, go
Right.
ahead. I mean,
It's
just
one of my favorite moments in the film was when they get picked for work duty and he looks around. He's like, wouldn't you know, me and my
yeah,
friends got picked.
yeah, yeah, and that's right on. That's spot on.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
definitely happens. Somebody has a good work crew, they're in good with their boss, they're chummy with their boss. Not even necessarily no, it doesn't have to be like an intimate type situation. It's just, "Hey, we're cool, we get along, and, oh, we're doing this? Hey, let me get my oh, you need volunteers? I got you. Let me tell you. Okay, get Toonche over here, get Mandy, get Lori, get Chanel." We're calling our peeps. That's definitely how it happened. I was also just took note of how they were anxiously volunteering to do free hard labor. And that's we did that. We did that. Like yes, oh yeah, oh okay, I'll work all night to do this, to do this. And we weren't getting any kind of later on they get a beer or two, or and that wasn't happening for us. We weren't even getting free world coffee, but what were we getting? The laws recognition or whatever, for people to think we had this privileged job.
Right.
What a bunch of horse shit.
Right. Well, in the beginning of that clip too, I like what Red says, right? Like you see Andy just kind of mundanely going through his life with no friends, no real. He's working in the laundry, he's fighting off these guys that are always trying to attack him, and he just looks so dead inside. And he says, if life in prison is routine and more routine. And so this is Andy's routine for 2 years. And if it had gone on like this, I don't think he'd have made it, because it was just such a helpless, hopeless existence there. And I thought, man, what a perfect way to describe, how prison is routine. And if you don't have a good routine and you don't have things to bring meaning to that routine, how miserable that is.
And the people, I mean, when you go in, for me, going in and being the new person and not knowing anybody, not really knowing where I fit in, if I fit in, and seeing people make spreads together or play 42 together, and I'm just on the complete outside. There was a longing for companionship in there that I have not had ever in my life. You know, even in high school or new jobs, you have your people at home that you're going to go hang with and visit with and talk with, and not having that. There was an absence there, a loneliness and a need for that. And I know that's not about the clip, but it did make me think about it.
Yeah. So do you want to show your video?
Yeah, because it's so cute. It really is. This was like one of my.
Hey y'all, okay, so you let me know for sure that you wanted to see this as a series. How does Orange is the New Black compare to the Texas prison system based on...
This is part 2, and I want you to know that I would have to move the TV onto this little bench so that I could, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do overlays. I didn't know how to do anything. So this is the only way I knew how to show a scene. I was green, y'all. I was real green.
my experience. Let's hit it.
That light comes on, you need to be where you're supposed to be, and you don't move until it goes off. Dinner's after.
Absolutely. Count time is a major aspect of prison. They take it very serious. It's a security measure. On the unit where I spent most of the time, most of my incarceration, they counted anywhere from 8 to 10 times a day. Whenever they called count time, the whole unit froze. There was absolutely no inmate movement until they cleared count and confirmed that everyone was present and accounted for. If you were in your housing area, you would be on your bunk or in front of your bunk.
Girl, I'm
if
fast
you were
forwarding.
anywhere else, they always do a double count as well.
Okay, next.
So,
No talking during count, y'all, and that's legit. That's a major rule. You can get a major disciplinary case.
True.
That major disciplinary cases can even
Look how big my hand
extend
is.
your prison time.
I didn't
but
know
your
how to-
chance of
I
making
didn't know about
parole.
anything,
So it really has to do
Toonche.
with your freedom. That's a real big rule.
How hard is it to fucking count?
okay, this is,
Piper. Chapman.
look at you, Blondie. What'd you do?
Aren't you not supposed to ask that question? I read that you're not supposed to ask that.
You read that? Well, you studied for prison?
What did you do?
I count on this.
Recounts.
Yes, recounts, girl.
Oh my God, you take me so far back. Oh, recount. Everybody back to your cue. Well, no talking. Who's talking? Oh God. I mean, how hard is it to count? Can you tell me how many times you've said that in 10 years?
Yes.
Millions.
Yes.
How hard is it to count?
If they would hire people that graduated grade school, they could have people that
No.
count. We would go ham on them for those recounts. I'm
Pain in the butt. Guys, it is a major hassle for the officers and the inmates, and it just means that they couldn't get count to clear, that they couldn't get their counts to match up. So they have to recount the whole unit and stop everything again. So that is a major pain. The inmates' reaction to that is 100% genuine, and no, you really shouldn't ask anybody why they're in prison unless you become friends with them.
Let me see how to get this off. There we go. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hey, we're just
Put me-
gonna have to. Oh, you
you
fixed
put
it
me
real
in the-
quick.
You put me in the little box.
You fixed it real quick.
Yeah, you know that Orange is the New Black. I mean, it has some fantastical elements to it. It does. I mean, I couldn't show the scene where they're in the library getting it on. That is, I'm
Not
not
happening.
saying you can't get it on the education building. What I'm saying is the way they just got real soft porn with it.
Right.
Or you can't do all that. There's no time for that. There's no luxury. It's not clean. Come on, man. But
That's
for
not
the most
happening.
part,
You've
you
got
know,
one ear listening for the law, one eye watching for the law.
but I mean, in terms of like the day-to-day, basic day-to-day stuff and the inner conflicts and the relationships, I always thought was spot on. Now I've got a clip from Orange is the New Black.
Do it. Let's do it.
See if you how you feel about this one.
I need a witness as my plan slowly unfolds. Or maybe you won't see anything at all. All you need to know is that bitch is going down. What'd you say? Oh, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about someone else. That's what I thought. See, we cool. That's my tasty girl right there.
Okay.
So,
Right off, I want to say that girl was talking all that mess and she did not
right?
think anything was going to come from it. And we
Yeah.
see that is a real deal. That there's a lot of yapping happening in there.
Like Marcy, I could even feel myself getting
Yeah.
really anxious, right? Because I knew, like you, like say, look out. She talking all that shit. Oh, she got a little audience, and then you walk by and you're like, "What'd you say?" "Oh, I'm not talking about you." And then you try to cap again. You already know what's fixing. Like that was spot on, 100% accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I saw in there that I was like, "Oh, that wouldn't happen," is how a free world person intervened, like a civilian, not a correction staff. What I think that was a nurse, like how the nurse intervened and trying to stop, and then the nurse ends up getting hit. Baby, them nurses ain't trying to help, ain't trying to break up. They are going the other way. That the staff there that's not in a uniform is not fixing to get in the middle of a fight. That's not happening. But the other girl jumping in, for sure. For sure we see that. I've seen like two girls fighting, and the one of them's friend would just throw a punch and act like it ain't never happened.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen some pretty dirty, raunchy stuff. But hey, I know we're like have a shorter episode today, but I do have a story behind this. My friend, Snow, you know who you are, a black girl named Snow, and she, her name, her name is Pamela. She, uh, was in the cell with her woman, and somebody snitched on him, and poor Mr. Howard Hodges, Mr. Hodges comes around and catches him in the cell,
Oh
and
boy.
he takes Snow and escorts her to the shower cage. So she's locked in this cage that's connected to the day room, and we're all having day room. And the girl that snitched her out comes and sits on the bench closest to the shower cage and was just like, "Yeah, I did that. I did that. Yeah, I told it. And what? Ain't gonna get an ass whooping behind it. Ain't gonna get whooped behind it. Whoop me. Whoop me." And Snow's just cool, calm. She ain't talking. She's chill. She tells Mr. Hodges, I can go back to my cell, Mr. Hodges. I'm not gonna. And he's like, I don't know. She's like, I mean, And so he opens that poor little Mr. Hodges opens that gate, and Snow's walking, and he's walking in front of her, and she's walking to her cell, and then she just makes a left and just proceeds to smash that girl that was talking all that. Ain't gonna take no ass whooping behind. I was like, oh my. We were sitting right there, me and a chick named Dora. We were like, holy fire, that happened right now. But it was just that same thing. I was talking all that stuff. This girl in this episode, you're talking all this stuff, talking this big game, but really you ain't about that life.
You're not.
You are not about that life.
And when like when I was looking through all the clips, I was like, man, spot on. Running your mouth will get you caught up.
Yeah.
So the next clip I want to show is from the movie The Unforgivable. It's on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix. It was a Netflix movie with Sandra. What's her name? Sandra Bullock. Have you seen it?
I feel like I have, but I don't remember names. So let's do it.
So it was a story of a woman that was incarcerated for a really long time. I won't spoil the movie, but for murdering a police officer. So she's not allowed to see her baby sister who was in the house when it happened. And she's got all these parole restrictions and just her trying to navigate the world. And so this clip is her actually talking to her parole officer. Here we go.
I'm getting information you got yourself a lawyer. What you think that's gonna be, huh?
It's none of your business.
It's none of my business.
No.
You trying to contact your sister?
It's not right.
No, you lost those rights 20 years ago.
It's my fucking family.
Blood doesn't make you family, Ruth. Get that shit out your head. It's a reason why your sister hasn't contacted you. You're a convict. All she knows of you is as a killer. She's probably scared of you. Let that girl live her life. Your life starts here now, not 20 years ago. She's actually better off without you.
So I'm going to say that even though that movie has kind of a fantastical end to it, unrealistic, the story of Ruth throughout the movie was pretty spot on. It was pretty spot on, Marcy, the emotional experience of having come out of prison after 20 years. And you know.
And she was in a halfway house in that movie. And there were some scenes there. I mean, it differed. Obviously, every state is so different, and every type of halfway house is so different. It differed from my halfway house experience, but there was still a lot of similarities that I was like, oh yeah, I know, like that feeling that you're still in prison, even though you're in the free world, because the rules are so set to so strictly. And now that scene though, Toonche, I have been through about 6 parole officers since I've been home. And I have not had one take that kind of vested interest in me. But
well, could you say, let's say that it's not the parole officer. Let's just say it was someone in her life. I think the conversation, maybe the parole officer wouldn't do it, but I think that's a conversation that you hear.
That's a conversation you hear in prison. I remember my family coming to visit and them telling me, our staff members, officers saying things like, they'd be better off if I can't believe you make your kids come up here, you know, they'd be better off. Or staff members that knew zero squat about what was happening in my marriage wanted to comment on my marriage. Yeah.
And then when you
deserve a man like that, I heard that lots of times.
And you're judging me based on just an appearance, because like in the movie at the end, you realize, again, don't want to spoil it, but you realize just how unjust things have been for Ruth, and how dare anybody judge her or speak on her life experience, because they didn't know, right? They didn't know. Now, I know we're almost at our time, Marcy, because you've got meetings and I got to get ready for my travel. But I do want to end on a more bizarre, humorous note. Now, when I was younger, my first prison movie was Escape from Alcatraz, and I should have pulled up one of those scenes. It's a classic old movie, I believe Clint Eastwood, right? Pretty interesting, right? But my next introduction to prison was a Fox show when Fox Networks came on the scene in the mid 80s. I was young.
In living color.
Yes. Now, back even a little bit before that. Okay. So I'm talking fresh Fox programming. And there was a show called Girls in Prison. Women in Prison. I'm sorry, Women in Prison. It would shock you. And I'm just going to show you a snippet of it, of how I'll just show you a snippet of it. It's pretty outrageous. A lot of people don't remember it. It barely lasted a season. Here we go. Here we go.
Hey, Dawn, your plants have really grown.
Thank you. So's your keychain. Ooh, what'd you feed it?
Well, you know what a rush it is when your hands take on a life of their own?
Yeah, but I sure wouldn't waste it on a keychain.
What am I going to do with an 8-foot lanyard?
Try wrapping it around your neck again. And again, and again, and again. Wiggy! Since your arms are usually strapped behind you, what are you making for the prison crafts fair?
A mosaic. I love mosaics. Oh, how pretty. And what unusual tiles. What are they? Tea.
Girl, get off the gas right now. Please.
I'll have to send you the intro to it. It's so campy and it's so outrageous. Like, it's set in a prison, right? This is their day room, and then they have a cell that 4 of them share, but they're all in street clothes. They have all the things that you would normally
She had
have.
big hoop earrings.
And the humor was, well, just like that. She's like, what is this made of? Teeth, right? Like, it was just this weird, but it was kind of like this campy, those old 70s exploitation films, Caged Heat, and women in heat locked in cages with all this glorified sexual violence of women in prison. It was kind of a PG-13 version of that in a very weird way. But it's called Women in Prison. You can look it up on YouTube. It's very bizarre.
I had never seen that before in my life.
With some actresses that have been in pretty
that went on to do much better work.
Yeah, it's just very interesting, and it just goes to like all the, in that particular show too is some really terrible stereotypes with what am I trying to say? Different ethnic backgrounds, and all the horrible stereotyping, and you got the laugh track going too, and it's like, oh my god, like, what am I watching? But that's what people watched, and it creates those images and those ideas about women in prison. They stay in people's minds, and then when you vote on policies or you vote on legislation, those old narratives are reinforced in crazy shit like this.
Yeah, like telling someone to hang themselves,
right? Like portraying this woman as a vicious monster or whatever. But then I think media has gotten better and a little bit more responsible in terms of trying to really show they still have a long ways to go, especially with women and the LGBTQ plus community and people of color. But there has, at least Orange is the New Black, at least The Unforgivable had some really impactful elements that were actually very true to our experience.
And I can't believe you didn't show any Wentworth. I'm surprised. You didn't.
I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't know what my resistance to Wentworth is. I don't know if it was because a girl that I was interested in really liked it, and it just made me jealous and angry. I don't know why. I almost called you Lori.
And you almost got hit through the screen, through the restream. The Wentworth, that was the bomb. I binge watched the heck out of Wentworth.
Just have a resistance to it. I have it associated with something in my mind that I just refuse
The
to.
main character is in prison because she was a contestant on a cooking show where the host was like one of those, you suck. This is the nastiest shit I ever ate. Blah, blah, blah. And she just lost it. And with a frying pan full of grease or whatever, just that's what she went to prison for. And I had mad respect for her. She like she was a good character. It's a great show. Anyways, I don't have mad respect for her because she committed that act of violence, but because she just lost it because somebody was just in her face constant.
I have feelings and empathy and respect and some type of admiration for women that, why do I keep wanting to call you Lori?
I don't
Jesus.
know. Lori's on your mind. You're
Honey,
missing
I love
Lori.
you wherever you're at. No, I was just going to say, it just makes, this is why I watch true crime, Marci, is because I'm like, see, there are other people that struggle to regulate their emotions and their internalized violence and stuff. It makes me not feel so weird and alone. Is that crazy?
No, that's not crazy. I think that's good. I think it's not crazy. I'm looking at all the messages you sent me while I was on my Okay. Toonche, next week we will be live.
Well, we're going to be in Philadelphia.
So we'll be live from Philly.
All of us. So you please bring all the appropriate material, and let's not have a big little conundrum like we did in Atlanta. Remember, we couldn't get it working. Then I had to use my phone. Do you remember all that?
We had to get on. It was the Wi-Fi issue, ma'am, but I will bring the proper equipment. We will be live on the Recyard Women's Prison Podcast. Will be live from Philadelphia in 1 week from today.
We'll probably have Brittany and Donise with us.
Yes.
It's just going to be a whole group of us on the Recyard. So we hope we don't get broke up because, you can't sit more than 2 or 3 people in one group on the Recyard.
Yeah. We don't want to start any riots or anything like that, but we are going to hang out and have a good time. Until then, we will see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing. If you're listening wherever you hear your favorite podcast, please leave us a review. We will see you soon. Out with us on the Recyard Women's Prison Podcast with Marci Marie and Toonche. Make sure and subscribe.